Deborra-Lee Furness has at last spoken out regarding Hugh Jackman's upcoming wedding. For nearly 3 decades, Deborra-Lee Furness was the woman beside one of Hollywood's most cherished figures. She was by his side long before the international stardom, before the iconic role of Wolverine, and before the Oscar nominations, hosting gigs, and thunderous Broadway applause, and the $100 million paydays. She knew Hugh Jackman when he was still a complete unknown. Just a 25-year-old fresh-faced graduate from drama school, taking his first steps onto a professional film set, he was anxious, untested, and entirely anonymous to the world. While she was the established star of the production, he was just the new face, yet she chose him against all odds. This was despite the warnings from those around her that she was making a significant error in judgment. Fast forward 27 years, and their divorce was officially finalized on a Monday in June of 2025. And just a few months later, the very man who had spent almost 3 decades proclaiming to the world that Deborra-Lee was his one true love.
Hey, wow.
Nice to meet you.
Something.
Huh? You think I'm going to share that with you all?
Love is not enough.
Was rumored to be organizing his wedding to another woman. When insiders connected to Deborah were questioned about her feelings on seeing Hugh and Sutton Foster appearing together publicly, her response was a mere 5 words, yet they carried an immense and cutting weight. She called it a real kick in the teeth. To truly grasp the profound significance behind those 5 words, which encapsulate the history of an entire marriage, we must journey back in time to 1995 to a television studio in Melbourne, Australia, to the very instant when a woman with an already established career glanced across the room and noticed a young man who had yet to make his mark on the world. It's crucial to understand that Deborra-Lee Furness wasn't some obscure actress who simply found fortune by marrying a future movie star. Long before Hugh Jackman was a household name, she had already been honored with the Best Actress award. The recognition came from the Australian Film Critics Circle for her powerful leading role in the 1988 movie titled Shame. Her training was at the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts, located in New York City. She had even gained experience working on the popular series Falcon Crest during her time in the United States. Upon her return to Australia, she had successfully cultivated a reputation as one of the nation's most highly regarded actresses. So by the time she accepted the leading role in the 1995 television show, Correlli, Deborra-Lee Furness was already a well-known figure. And the reason all of this is so important is what followed, because the events that unfolded on that very television set would go on to define the subsequent 30 years for both of them. At this point, Hugh Jackman was a complete unknown. The show Correlli represented his very first professional acting engagement after graduating from drama school. In the series, he took on the role of an inmate. Her character was the prison psychologist tasked with his rehabilitation, and as Jackman himself has recounted the story many times, the chemistry between them was instantaneous. He would later reminisce about the exact moment she removed her sunglasses to introduce herself on the set. The thought that immediately crossed his mind was, "I really like this girl." Deborra-Lee, however, was far more hesitant. After all, she was a full 13 years his senior. She was a seasoned professional in the industry, while he was essentially a recent graduate just starting out. The difference in their ages was a point of concern for her, not out of vanity, but from a pragmatic understanding of how society often scrutinizes women who partner with younger men. She accurately predicted the kind of public commentary that would follow, and she was not wrong. Indeed, that talk persisted for many, many years. In fact, she even attempted to end the budding relationship before it could truly begin. She explained to him that the age gap was too significant, that their relationship was doomed to fail, and that the public gossip would be relentless. Yet, a 25-year-old Hugh Jackman, armed with little more than raw talent and an unwavering conviction, successfully persuaded her not to leave him. He assured her that the opinions of others meant absolutely nothing to him. He made it clear that for him, she was the only one. A mere 4 months into their courtship, he asked for her hand in marriage, and they were wed on April 11th, 1996, at St. John's Church in Toorak, a comfortable suburb of Melbourne. On their wedding day, she was 40 years old. He was just 27. For the next 27 years, she would step onto red carpets, fully aware that every single tabloid was scrutinizing her appearance against his, her aging process became a public spectacle, happening right alongside a man celebrated by the entire world as the sexiest man alive. She couldn't avoid reading the comments. She noticed all the headlines. It's a feeling that every woman over 50 understands intimately, that subtle, pervasive cruelty of being constantly compared to a younger version of yourself that simply no longer exists. Deborra-Lee endured this experience under the watchful eyes of millions, and throughout it all, Hugh Jackman consistently declared to every interviewer, every crowd, and every camera aimed in his direction that she was the most incredible thing that had ever happened in his life. For their 25th anniversary in 2021, he shared vintage wedding photos accompanied by a heartfelt caption which read, "From almost the instant we met, I understood that our destiny was to be intertwined. In our 25 years, our love has only deepened. The enjoyment, the thrill, and the adventure have become more exhilarating, and the journey of learning even more profound." He described his marriage to her as being as effortless and essential as breathing. Any woman who reads declarations like that will believe them. This isn't because she is naive, but rather because when a man proclaims them in public consistently for a full quarter of a century, you are inclined to take him at his word. You construct your entire existence around those affirmations. You start making choices founded on that very promise. You decline certain career opportunities. You relocate to different countries. You dedicate yourself to raising a family. You grow older with a partner because you have faith that everything they have told you is the undeniable truth. And then suddenly, one day, it isn't. Following their wedding, Deborra-Lee and Hugh embarked on the journey to have children attempting IVF. For anyone who has not personally experienced it, describing its profound effect on a woman's body and her spirit of hope is incredibly difficult. There are the injections, the agonizing waiting periods, the silent pleas made to the universe with each new dawn, and then came the heartbreak of miscarriages. Not just a single loss, but multiple ones. Each experience is like a private funeral that no one else can attend. Hugh would eventually talk about their struggles publicly, but Deborah did not. She shouldered that sorrow in the manner so many women of her generation often do. It's not because they lack feeling, but rather because they were conditioned to believe that certain kinds of pain should remain private, that one must maintain composure in public and only allow yourself to break down in the solitude of the shower where no one can hear the sounds of your grief. When the biological route proved unsuccessful, they chose to adopt their son Oscar, who was born in the year 2000. Their daughter Ava followed, born in 2005. Hugh once remarked that the moment Oscar arrived, all of their previous heartache simply dissolved. Inspired by her journey, Deborra-Lee transformed into a passionate champion for adoption reform within Australia, dedicating herself to altering legislation and dismantling the social stigma that so often surrounds adoptive families. She wasn't simply a new mother. She evolved into a powerful voice for all parents who have constructed their families through the bonds of love rather than the lines of biology. For 2 entire decades, the Jackman marriage was showcased as the ultimate proof that a Hollywood romance could genuinely endure. They would stroll down red carpets, their hands clasped together. They consistently spoke of one another with an authentic, unpalpable warmth. Hugh often credited Deborra-Lee as his anchor, keeping him grounded amid the overwhelming chaos that fame brings. She was never just the celebrity's wife relegated to standing silently in her husband's shadow. On the contrary, she was the very woman who constructed the solid foundation upon which he built his success. Yet at some point along the way, something fundamentally shifted, and in hindsight, the warning signs were present, long before anyone was willing to acknowledge them. In February of 2022, Hugh Jackman commenced rehearsals for the highly anticipated Broadway revival of The Music Man, starring alongside the acclaimed Sutton Foster. The production enjoyed a run of nearly a full year, finally closing its curtains in January of 2023. Throughout that period, according to numerous sources and subsequently, according to reports from U.S. Weekly, the connection between Hugh and Sutton evolved into what those in the know were calling Broadway's most poorly concealed secret. Backstage, it was said that fellow cast members witnessed them sharing prolonged hugs. Sutton herself mentioned in interviews that one of the greatest aspects of the show was the nightly pre-show tradition she and Hugh had, where they would connect and share details about their day, regardless of whether it was a complete romance or something that existed in the ambiguous territory between friendship and infidelity. Deborra-Lee sensed it profoundly. Sources in her inner circle later shared her conviction that an emotional affair was happening even if it hadn't become physical during their marriage, and for a woman who had invested 27 years in placing her absolute trust in one man, the line between an emotional and physical transgression is far less meaningful than most people realize. Betrayal is still betrayal. It's the act of turning away that shatters you, not the specific individual someone turns to. In April 2023, Hugh shared a wedding anniversary tribute for Deborra-Lee. The following month, they appeared at the Met Gala as a couple. They beamed for the cameras, presenting the same unbreakable image they always had. Then just 4 months later, on September 15, 2023, they issued a joint statement confirming their separation. We have been blessed to share almost 3 decades together as husband and wife in a wonderful, loving marriage, it declared. Our journey now is shifting, and we have decided to separate to pursue our individual growth. Individual growth, that was the clinical phrase they chose. 2 individuals who had been inseparable for 27 years, raising 2 adopted children, together who had navigated miscarriages, fame, and the relentless pressure of life as a public couple, had their ending distilled into 2 words that sound like they belong on a human resources memo. If you've ever had to sit and face someone you adore as they use careful sanitized language to articulate why they are leaving you, then you understand precisely how empty those words feel. You recognize that individual growth is simply code for this is already decided, and this is the story that paints me in a reasonable light. For nearly 2 years following the announcement, Deborra-Lee remained almost entirely silent in the public sphere. She devoted her energy to her children. She appeared at a screening for her movie Force of Nature: The Dry 2 in May 2024. And when a journalist from People magazine asked what the previous year had imparted to her, she offered a reply that was as simple as it was devastating: that I'm strong and resilient. That is not the sound of a woman celebrating her liberation. That is a woman informing you that she has weathered a storm. Meanwhile, Hugh Jackman's association with Sutton Foster transformed from whispered rumor into undeniable reality. In October 2024, Sutton officially filed for divorce from her screenwriter husband Ted Griffin, concluding a marriage that had lasted a decade. By January 2025, Hugh and Sutton were pictured holding hands in Los Angeles. Their relationship was now official. Whatever had been murmured in the wings during the Music Man was now out in the open, walking down the street in the full light of day. Sutton Foster is 49. Deborra-Lee is 70. And if you believe that age is nothing but a number, you've never been the older woman forced to watch her husband start a new chapter with someone younger. It is not simply jealousy. It is the distinct quiet agony of realizing that the life you meticulously built together was not enough for him, that all those years of unwavering loyalty and personal sacrifice, and simply being there day after day, could be cast aside not for a better person, but just for a younger one, a new partner. Then on May 23, 2025, Deborra-Lee took a definitive step and filed for divorce. This wasn't a mutual decision. This time, it was all her. Just 4 days after that, she finally broke her public silence with a statement released to the Daily Mail that stood in stark contrast to the carefully managed corporate language of their 2023 separation announcement. She said, "My heart and deepest compassion go out to every individual who has endured the agonizing journey of betrayal." She emphasized it is a profound wound, one that cuts incredibly deep. Betrayal. She selected that term with clear intention. It wasn't disappointment or sadness she spoke of, but betrayal. This was a woman who, after maintaining her silence for nearly 2 full years, picked the single most powerful word that left absolutely no room for misinterpretation. Meanwhile, the financial settlement of their divorce painted its own revealing picture. By early June of 2025, the divorce was finalized. Reports began to circulate that the couple divided a massive fortune estimated to be around $387 million, which included valuable real estate in Manhattan, the Hamptons, Australia, and even England. Significantly, just 2 days prior to filing the paperwork, Deborah made a move, paying $1.7 million to gain full ownership of their Manhattan penthouse. It was clear she was not about to walk away from this marriage without securing a home that was unequivocally hers and hers alone. And then almost before the ink could even dry on the divorce documents, whispers of an upcoming wedding began to swirl. Stories emerged suggesting that Hugh had proposed to Sutton Foster while they were on a New Year's holiday in Costa Rica right at the close of 2025. Insiders claimed he simply couldn't contain his excitement about the engagement, sharing the news with friends, despite the fact that Sutton's own divorce from Ted Griffin was not yet legally complete. Then by the start of 2026, entertainment news outlets were already reporting that the new couple was making plans for an intimate private ceremony in New York City, with Ryan Reynolds slated to be the best man and a guest list heavily featuring Australian celebrities. But here's the shocking detail: no prenup. According to those close to the situation, despite amassing a fortune during his previous marriage, Hugh Jackman allegedly has no intention of signing a prenuptial agreement with his new wife. This is the one detail that must have been the most painful blow. 27 years spent building a life and an empire together, and now it seems he's prepared to start all over again, without implementing even the most fundamental protections that his past experience should have ingrained in him. Of course, unless the key takeaway he derived from his first marriage wasn't really about safeguarding his assets at all. Perhaps the lesson he learned was that he never had to be concerned, because the wife he had chosen would invariably prioritize the family unit even at times when he himself failed to do so. When sources in Deborra-Lee's circle were questioned about Hugh publicly flaunting his new romance, their response was strikingly blunt. Observing them parade their relationship so freely felt like a genuine kick in the teeth. It wasn't just anger or bitterness, it was a kick in the teeth. That's the sort of expression one uses when something strikes you in a completely unforeseen and vulnerable way, precisely because you believed the most painful part was already behind you, and now the book is coming. Numerous media outlets have confirmed that Deborra-Lee Furness is actively shopping a tell-all memoir detailing her marriage and its subsequent dissolution. A fierce bidding war is reportedly underway among major publishing houses. Hugh was apparently cautioned quite early on that this was a distinct possibility. It's well known that every high-profile divorce inevitably generates a book proposal. He had apparently been holding out hope that she would decline the offers. She did not. Sources now claim that Deborra-Lee has been meticulously maintaining what insiders are calling a divorce diary, and she is fully prepared to defend her story using her own voice. Unsurprisingly, Hugh and Sutton are reportedly less than thrilled about this development. One source has even characterized the forthcoming book as an act born purely out of spite. To label it spite seems like a fascinatingly unfair description for a woman who maintained her public silence for 2 full years, even as her husband's new romance was splashed across every major tabloid headline. This is a woman who raised 2 children alongside a man endured the heartache of miscarriages with him, and uprooted her life to the other side of the world for his professional ambitions, shielding him from every insidious rumor, and each cruel jab about their age difference, only to be handed a sanitized joint statement about personal growth, when he was already well on his way out with his co-star from Broadway. If Deborra-Lee Furness ever does write that tell-all book, it won't be driven by spite. It will be born from the fact that she dedicated 27 years to co-authoring a life story with a partner, only for him to unilaterally rewrite the final chapter without her consent. The absolute minimum she is owed is the opportunity to finally present her own narrative. This is the thought that I simply cannot shake. Back in 1996, Deborra-Lee Furness was a 40-year-old established actress with a proven track record. She entered into a marriage with a 27-year-old unknown who had little more than raw potential. and then dedicated the subsequent 3 decades to witnessing his transformation into one of the most celebrated movie stars on earth. It would have been easy to resent his monumental fame. She could have seen it as competition, but instead she became its biggest champion. She was the very bedrock of his success, and when he ultimately outgrew that bedrock, he chose not to remodel. He simply turned and walked away to begin construction on a new life somewhere else. She recounted once during their earlier years how people warned her their union would crumble because of the age disparity, suggesting he would abandon her once he achieved fame, that a younger man with such charisma couldn't possibly remain faithful. To a woman who was 13 years his senior, for 27 remarkable years she proved every single one of them wrong. And then, on a particular Monday in June of 2025, their predictions devastatingly came true. Right now, somewhere in New York, Deborra-Lee Furness is residing in the Manhattan penthouse that she purchased with her own funds. Her children are now adults, and the relentless glare of the tabloid cameras has largely shifted elsewhere, and she is left to grapple with a reality that millions of women over 60 understand intimately but seldom speak aloud. That you can meticulously do everything by the book, remaining devoted, patient, and resilient. You can forge a home, raise a family, and be a steadfast partner through every imaginable tempest, and yet it still might not be sufficient. Not because of any failure on your part, but simply because the individual you placed your trust in decided he desired a different story. Deborra-Lee Furness did not merely lose a husband. She lost the quiet argument against the world that she had been decisively winning for nearly 3 decades. And if that doesn't feel like a profound gut punch, then truly nothing does. We did a deep dive into the complete relationship timeline of Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster in a prior video. If you happen to miss that segment, it is available for you on your screen at this moment, because the events that unfolded behind the curtains during The Music Man illuminate everything that followed, everything that came after.